we would be talking about the deaths of elementary school children who were in the middle of learning their ABCs. Some moron would walk in with an AK-47 or another high-powered weapon and start shooting elementary school kids.
Right.
Who would think that we would be talking about a group of Bible study participants sitting in Bible study? Who would have thought that we'd be talking about they were slaughtered in Bible study?
No.
You know,
Right.
elementary school students, Bible study students. Who would have thought we'd be talking about Virginia Tech students being slaughtered? So this is our reality. So what I would say, Pastor C, is make sure that you have a very frank, factual, age-appropriate discussion with your loved ones. And I'm talking about from kindergarten right through a master's program at Johns Hopkins. Yeah. You have to have that conversation.
Can I add my 2 cents?
Please give us 5 cents.
I'm not gonna go back on the procedures that you just stated, because I completely agree that that conversation is completely necessary. But from a social standpoint, especially on the high school level, because I've seen how nasty people can get. You know, I before the show, I did a lot of research on these last couple shootings, and I started with Columbine. And I read up on some of the most popular shootings up to this last, well, not this last one, but the one at Majority Douglas. And the one thing that was consistent in each case was that as the shooter was going through the school, once he found somebody that he recognized who had shown him some kind of empathy, they gave them mercy. They told them to run. They told them, you're the one who can tell the story. They always had those one or couple people who, I do know that kid. He was in my art class and he was actually nice to me that one time. And they were able to go free. So the one thing that I will say is socially, just try to be nice to everybody. If you see somebody sitting alone, just try to at least make eye contact with them and give them a smile, because it might come down to that moment. They might not even know your name, but people remember a look. People remember a smile. If they look in your eyes and they recognize you to be somebody, that one person who would have shown them a little light in the darkness that they go through before these shootings, they might show you mercy. So socially, that's really the only advice that I would give, is just really try to be an advocate for those who don't have your social group. They might not belong to a cheer team or a football team. They might not be in the theater program. They might just be alone. And a lot of these loners are the ones that do these shootings. I remember reading up on the Columbine shooting. Their specific targets were jocks, because they felt mistreated specifically by jocks. And if you even looked in the footage that they had from the cafeteria and from the library, there was a student that made eye contact with the shooter that he remembered, and he let them go. That's actually in the footage, and that's actually in the articles when you read about it. And there's always that story for a school shooter. It's been pretty consistent that there's always those few who were shown mercy because they looked them in the eye, and which is actually also a common tactic for being attacked by another human being. A lot of the times when people commit mass shootings or rapes or kidnappings, the sense of humanity is kind of gone. They kind of look at their victims as targets. So if you look them in their eyes and show them a little bit of humanity, that might actually get you a little mercy too. So just really try to be nice and reach out to people, because you never know when that may come back to you in a positive way.
And those are great points, Ambezi. And Pastor C, I have a question for you. We always assume school shootings are going to happen at the such and such public school or at the such and such university. But as a pastor, what are the sort of preparations and things that are happening in among your peers in terms of Sunday school?
Well, unfortunately, we do have cases where parishioners are assaulted on your regular Sunday morning gathering or when people gather for worship. And so pastors and their staff have been proactive, and they've been going through trainings and certain skill set developments so that they're able to handle such an occurrence. And so even myself as a senior pastor, we brought in a team of people to help us deal with the unfortunes of individuals coming in and trying to demonstrate such acts of violence. It happens. Unfortunately, it happens. People go through things emotionally. They go through things psychologically, relationship problems, family problems, and, they come to the church and they're troubled. They look to assault the leaders, the pastor, or whatever. And so we have been proactive at our local congregation and just making sure that we can spot some symptoms and we're being kind to individuals. And on the other side of that, we're also skilled in trying to prevent certain things from happening while also contacting the authorities. So we're taking some precautions, if you will, to make sure that we can respond properly. Professional precautions.
So do you feel that your parishioners feel they are protected within reason, of course, within the resources you have available to you?
Within reason, Chief, yes. Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do outside of praying and believing that God is going to protect you if someone comes in to assault you with a gun. It's not a whole lot you can do. And we are hoping and praying and believing God that we're never put or placed in those situations, of course. But I do believe that our parishioners are safe. We have security at our church. We have off-duty police officers who carry, we want to create an environment conducive for people to feel free to come and worship God and not worry about their safety or their lives. And so we do whatever we can with what we have to make sure that people are safe.
And so it's just so important that people understand that when you're talking about active shooter situations and things that happen, it's not just at the schools that you think of normally.
Absolutely, yes.
And those same and also those same indicators and those same types of situations happen in church settings and Sunday school settings. So again, it's not the active shooter thing that is the most common type of violence, if you will. Can you kind of expand on that too, Pastor C?
Well, yes, sir. I mean, when we went through training, our presenters brought video footage of individuals walking into churches and they harmed individual with guns. We saw one footage of an individual being assaulted, the pastor being punched in the face, and so it's not only happening on our school grounds, Chief and MBZ, it's happening in our local churches. And I think that it should cause an awareness to all of those who may gather in these settings to make sure that they keep themselves aware of their surroundings. And here's the thing, too. At church, you're open, you're loving, you're kind to people. And so you're not expecting for something that egregious, if you will, to happen in that environment. And so it seems as if people at church are vulnerable, but in today's society, you have churches with security guards and armed guys, and people are being taught how to locate an offender, how to assess a situation and respond properly. And so I would say that it's not only at our schools, Chief and MBZ, it's happening at our social gatherings, it's happening in our places of worship. And I just believe we should educate ourselves on people and behaviors, mental illness, and go through some proper training so that we're able to respond properly.
And I'm glad that you said that, Pastor C, because we can never allow ourselves to be lulled into a false sense of security at these places. And Mbizi, do you have any further comments for your folks that are university students?
It's like I said earlier, I think the most you can do as a university student is just to really, like you said earlier, pay attention to your surroundings, because I just speak from I can only speak from my personal experience, but I know this to be true with a lot of college students. When I was in high school, even though I had my core group of friends, I knew what was going on with other people because I was always around them all the time. Rumors spread, but even outside of rumors, the kids I never really talked to, you still kind of knew their business a little bit. College is not like that. If I don't want to know anything about anybody outside my group of friends, I don't have to know, nor do I want to know. I could care less, honestly. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it does make you have to pay attention way more to your surroundings, because you're not going to know everybody's backstory. You're not going to know everybody's mannerisms the way you would on the high school level. So it really just comes down to paying attention to your surroundings, because that's really all you can do on the collegiate level.
Good.
Well, those are great points. And again, just so happy that we've been able to kind of share those perspectives this evening. And Pastor C, one last thing, just from the perspective of the safety of your Bible study students and so forth. Did you find that there was an awareness that was already there prior to you giving your training?
I don't believe that we were educated in that particular field. I don't believe that. And I think that we were sort of naive and gullible when it came to that, because you just don't think or fathom that would happen in a church, in a place of worship. And so you don't prepare for what you don't think you're going to encounter.
Right.
And so I think that when we begin to see these things happen around us, we felt like, hey, we need to be proactive. And so I began to educate our church by bringing in professionals, a former chief of the police department and his team, kind of walking us through a process and giving us situations to respond to. And so to answer your question, I don't believe a lot of people in the church context was actually ready. They were actually prepared for that type of awareness. But now I truly believe all over Christendom, if you will, and different places of worship, people have prepared themselves to respond in a manner that will protect the lives of individuals who come to their parishes to worship.
Wow. Wow. Well, that certainly gives us a lot to think about this evening. We've covered quite a few topics, and we've heard from mental health professionals, and we've just gotten a lot of good information tonight, and that I hope that will resonate with others. And for those that didn't have a plan, they will start to develop a plan for their families and for their young people. And so I just thank you again, Dr. Douglas, for your information.
Yes.
You were just amazing as always. I mean, Dr. Douglas is a well-known mental health practitioner just known up and down the East Coast and out here on the West Coast as well. So we're just so happy that she had a few minutes in her day to share some things with us. But as you said, Pastor C, this has been a great discussion tonight, and I totally agree with you, Pastor C. Students have enough to worry about